The elevator doors slid shut, trapping them together in polished steel and silence. Caleb Whitmore, Billionaire CEO, didn't plan to kiss the woman who'd haunted his thoughts for months. But when Mara Collins whispered, "I love you," into her phone, something inside him snapped. Jealousy, want, recklessness. He kissed her hard, possessive, like a man claiming what was never his to take. When she pulled back, eyes wide with shock, he realized his mistake. That call wasn't for a lover. It was for her sister. And in one stupid, perfect moment, he'd crossed a line he could never uncross. If you're ready to see how one kiss in an elevator changed everything, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Caleb Whitmore learned early that money bought silence. Not love, not loyalty. Just the expensive kind of quiet that kept people at arm's length and questions unasked. At 32, he'd built an empire that most men spent lifetimes chasing. And he'd done it while raising a daughter alone. Sophie was 6 now, sharp-eyed and stubborn, with her mother's dark curls and his own careful distance from anything that felt too much like vulnerability. He didn't do messy, didn't do uncertain. His life ran on schedules, contracts, and the kind of control that made board members nervous and competitors cautious. Until Mara Collins walked into his company 6 months ago and made him feel like a teenager again, clumsy, distracted, wanting something he couldn't buy. She worked 3 floors down from his corner office, coordinating projects for the development team. He'd noticed her the first week during a presentation she gave on resource allocation. Most people stammered when he asked questions, eager to please or terrified of saying the wrong thing. Mara just looked at him like he was another person in the room and answered with the kind of precision that made him forget what he was going to say next. She wore cheap blazers that didn't quite fit right and carried coffee in a thermos instead of buying it from the lobby cafe. Her shoes were practical, scuffed at the heels. She didn't network at company events or laugh too loud at executive jokes. She worked, went home, and came back the next day to work some more. Caleb found himself looking for her. In hallways. In meetings she had no reason to attend. He started reading project reports he'd normally delegate just to see her name in the notes. It was ridiculous. He was a grown man, a father, someone who'd survived a divorce that made headlines, and a custody battle that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. He didn't chase women, didn't get distracted by a coordinator who probably didn't even know his first name, except she did know it. He found that out 3 months in, when she'd stepped into his office to drop off a file his assistant had requested. "Mr. Whitmore," she'd said, setting the folder on his desk. "Caleb," he'd corrected without thinking. She'd paused, meeting his eyes for a beat longer than necessary. "Mr. Whitmore works fine." And then she'd left, and he'd sat there like an idiot, watching the door she'd closed behind her. His assistant, Jeremy, had smirked. "That's Mara Collins. She doesn't do the whole schmooze thing." "I didn't ask. You were staring." Caleb shot him a look that would have made most employees reconsider their career choices. Jeremy just shrugged and went back to his computer. But the damage was done. He couldn't stop noticing her after that. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking. How she argued with the finance team over budget cuts without raising her voice once. The fact that she ate lunch at her desk most days, phone pressed to her ear, talking to someone in a soft voice that didn't match the steel she showed everyone else. He told himself it didn't matter. He wasn't going to do anything about it. Mara Collins was an employee, and he wasn't the kind of man who abused his position. He'd seen what that looked like, worked with enough executives who treated the office like a personal hunting ground. That wasn't him. Then came the day everything broke. It was late, past 7 on a Thursday, and the office had emptied out except for the few people who didn't have anywhere better to be. Caleb had stayed to finish a contract review, the kind of tedious work that didn't require a team but ate up hours anyway. He was heading to the executive elevator, the private one that ran express to the garage, when he heard footsteps behind him. Mara was walking toward the same elevator, phone in one hand, bag slung over her shoulder. She looked tired. More than tired. Worn down in a way that made something tighten in his chest. She glanced up, saw him, and hesitated. "It's fine," he said, nodding toward the elevator. "Plenty of room." She stepped in beside him as the doors slid shut. The space was too small, too quiet. He could smell her shampoo, something cheap and floral, and see the frayed edge of her bag strap up close. Her phone buzzed. She answered without looking at the screen. "Hey," she said, her voice dropping into something softer. "I know. I'm sorry I'm late." Caleb kept his eyes on the floor display, trying not to listen, trying not to care. "I'll grab something on the way home," Mara continued. "Did you finish your homework?" "Good. I'm proud of you." A pause. Then, so quietly he almost missed it, "I love you too." Something in his chest twisted, sharp and sudden. He didn't think, didn't plan. He just turned, saw the way her face softened as she ended the call, and moved. His hand caught her wrist. She looked up, startled. "What?" He kissed her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't asking permission. He backed her against the elevator wall, his mouth on hers, tasting surprise and something sweeter underneath. Her bag hit the floor. For a second, maybe two, she kissed him back, her hands coming up to his chest, fingers curling into his shirt. Then she shoved him, hard. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Caleb stepped back, breathing too fast, reality crashing down like cold water. You don't get to do that." Her voice shook, but her eyes were furious. "You don't get to just... I'm sorry." The words came out rough. "I thought..." "Thought what?" She grabbed her bag off the floor, face flushed. "That because I said I love you to someone, you had the right to... I thought it was a boyfriend." He sounded like an idiot. Felt like one too. "I don't know why I..." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "A boyfriend." The elevator dinged, ground floor. The doors slid open to the empty garage. Mara stepped out, then turned back. "That was my sister. She's 15, and I'm the only family she has." The doors started to close. Caleb stuck his hand out, stopping them. "Mara, don't." She held up a hand. "Just don't." She walked away, her footsteps echoing off concrete, and Caleb stood there watching her go, knowing he'd just destroyed something he didn't even realize he wanted until it was too late. Whoa. He didn't sleep that night, just sat in his apartment's living room, staring at the city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows while Sophie slept down the hall. His phone sat on the coffee table, dark and useless. He wanted to text Mara, to call her, to do something that would undo what he'd done, but there wasn't an undo button for kissing someone without permission, for letting jealousy turn him into the kind of man he'd promised himself he'd never be. His ex-wife, Vanessa, used to say he had two settings, complete control or total chaos. No middle ground. She'd hated that about him, the way he could compartmentalize everything except the things that actually mattered. "You'll die alone in that glass tower of yours," she'd told him the day their divorce finalized. "And you'll deserve it." He'd thought she was being dramatic, bitter about the settlement, about losing the lifestyle she'd married into. Now, sitting alone at 2 a.m, he wondered if she'd been right. Sophie padded into the room, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy? Hey, sweetheart." He shifted over, making room on the couch. "Bad dream?" She climbed up next to him, curling into his side. "No, you're loud thinking. Loud thinking. When you think so hard, I can hear it in my room." He huffed a quiet laugh, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Sorry. Is it work stuff?" "Something like that." Sophie was quiet for a moment, then, "Mom used to say you think too much and feel too little." His chest tightened. "Your mom said a lot of things, but she was wrong about that part." Sophie looked up at him, serious in the way only 6-year-olds could be. "You feel big. You just don't show it." He didn't know what to say to that. Didn't trust his voice. "Can I have pancakes tomorrow?" Sophie asked, already moving on the way kids did. "Sure." "The good kind? With the chocolate chips?" "We'll see." She grinned, satisfied, and settled back against him. Within minutes, she was asleep again, her breathing slow and steady. Caleb sat there holding his daughter, thinking about Mara Collins and the way she'd looked at him in that elevator, shocked, angry, hurt. Thinking about how he'd taken something that wasn't his because he couldn't stand the thought of her loving someone else. He'd built his entire life on control, on making smart decisions, calculated risks, on never letting emotion dictate action. One kiss had shattered all of that. By Friday morning, he had a plan. Apologize. Professionally. Keep it brief. Acknowledge the mistake and make it clear it would never happen again. Simple. Clean. The plan lasted exactly as long as it took him to walk into his office and find Jeremy waiting with an expression that meant bad news. What? Mara Collins submitted a transfer request. Caleb set his briefcase down carefully. To where? The Boston office. It went through this morning. Kill it. Jeremy blinked. Sir? Kill the transfer. Send it back, whatever it takes. That's not really how transfers work. She has the right to request. I don't care about her rights. He heard himself, heard how that sounded, and forced himself to breathe. I need to talk to her first. She's not in today. Called in sick. Of course she did. Because Mara Collins wasn't stupid, and she knew exactly what staying would mean. Working in a building with a man who'd cornered her in an elevator and kissed her without consent. He was that guy now, the boss who crossed lines. The man women warned each other about in whispered conversations by the coffee machine. Get her on the phone, Caleb said. She's not answering. Then go to her apartment. Jeremy's eyebrows shot up. That's definitely crossing a line, sir. I'm already over the line. He grabbed his jacket. Where does she live? I don't know, and I wouldn't tell you if I did. Jeremy's voice was firm in a way it rarely got. You need to let this go. Let her transfer. Let her move on. I can't. Why not? Because the thought of Mara leaving, of never seeing her walk past his office, never hearing her voice in meetings, never having the chance to prove he was better than what he'd shown her, made him feel like something was tearing apart inside his chest. But he couldn't say that. Not to Jeremy, not to anyone. Because I owe her an apology, he said instead. A real one, not through email or a phone call she won't answer. Jeremy studied him for a long moment. You're going to make this worse, probably. And you're going to do it anyway. Yes, Jeremy sighed. She lives in Greenfield. The apartment's on Oak Street, Building C. But I didn't tell you that. Understood. Greenfield was a 40-minute drive from downtown, tucked into the kind of neighborhood where paint peeled off shutters and chain-link fences separated tiny yards. Mara's building was a 3-story walk-up, the kind with rusted railings and windows that didn't quite close all the way. Caleb parked his car, a Tesla that looked obscene against the backdrop of beat-up Hondas and aging Toyotas, and climbed to the second floor. Apartment 2C. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Mara, it's Caleb. I know you're home. Still nothing. I'm not leaving until you talk to me. The door cracked open. Mara stood there in sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, her hair pulled back, face bare of makeup. She looked younger without the armor of work clothes, looked tired. You need to go, she said. I need to apologize. You already did, in the elevator. That wasn't an apology, that was panic. He shoved his hands in his pockets to keep from reaching for her. Can I come in? No. Fair enough. He leaned against the doorframe, keeping his distance. I was jealous. That's why I kissed you. I heard you tell someone you loved them, and I lost it. I know that's not an excuse. I know I had no right to touch you, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mara's expression didn't change. Okay. Okay? You apologized. I heard you. Now leave. I don't want you to transfer. Her laugh was hollow. Of course you don't. It makes you look bad. It makes me look exactly like what I am. Someone who abused his position and made you uncomfortable in your own workplace. He met her eyes. But that's not why I don't want you to go. Then why? Because I've wanted you for 6 months, and I finally did something about it in the worst possible way, and now I'm standing here begging you not to run before I get a chance to do it right. The words hung between them. Mara stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Do it right, she repeated slowly. Ask you to dinner. Get to know you. Prove I'm not just some entitled asshole who takes what he wants. But you are that. Yeah. He couldn't argue. I am. But I'm trying to be better. For me. For Sophie. For myself. He paused. And yeah. For you. Mara's hand tightened on the doorframe. You have a kid. A daughter. She's 6. And you thought kissing your employee was a good idea. I wasn't thinking. That's the problem. He scrubbed a hand over his face. I haven't been thinking clearly since you walked into my company and refused to be impressed by any of it. I work there. Of course I'm not impressed. Everyone else is. Everyone else doesn't have to worry about making rent. Her voice went sharp. Everyone else isn't supporting a 15-year-old on a coordinator's salary while trying to save enough to send her to college. He knew he should say something understanding or supportive. Instead, what came out was, "Have dinner with me." Are you insane? Probably. I'm not going to date my boss. Then quit. Mara blinked. What? Quit. Transfer to Boston. Do whatever you need to do. He stepped closer, close enough to see the flecks of gold in her brown eyes. But have dinner with me first. One meal. If you still want to leave after that, I won't fight it. This is the worst idea you've ever had. I've had worse. I doubt that. A door opened down the hall. A teenage girl stepped out, thin, dark-haired, wearing a school uniform that had seen better days. She stopped when she saw them. Mara, you okay? Mara's whole body language shifted, softening. I'm fine, Riley. Go back inside. Riley's eyes flicked to Caleb, suspicious. Who's he? My boss. The one who, Riley. The girl held up her hands. Fine, but if you need me to stab him or whatever, just yell. She disappeared back into the apartment. Caleb stared after her. That's your sister. That's Riley. Mara's expression was unreadable. She's protective. She offered to stab me. You cornered me in an elevator and kissed me without asking. She's not wrong to be concerned. He couldn't argue with that either. One dinner, he said again, somewhere public. You pick the place. If I'm still an asshole by the end of it, you transfer and I sign off without a word. Mara looked at him for a long time. He could see her thinking, weighing options, calculating risks the same way she did in budget meetings. Why do you even want this? She asked finally. You could date anyone, models, lawyers, people who wouldn't complicate your life. I don't want anyone. I want you. You don't know me. So let me learn. She shook her head slowly, like she couldn't believe what she was about to say. One dinner, tomorrow night, that Italian place on 5th, the one with the red awning. Rossetti's. 7 o'clock. If you're late, I'm leaving. I won't be late. And if you try to pay for everything or act like this is some kind of transaction, I'm out. Understood. Mara started to close the door, then paused. Caleb? Yeah? If this goes wrong, if you make me regret this, I won't just transfer. I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. He believed her. Believed she'd torch his reputation without hesitation if he gave her reason. Fair enough, he said. The door closed. He stood there for a moment, staring at the scuffed wood, wondering what the hell he was doing. Wondering if Mara Collins was going to be his salvation or his destruction. Probably both. Chat. Saturday came too fast and not fast enough. Caleb changed clothes 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a button-down that Sophie said made him look less scary. He'd hired a sitter, someone vetted and background checked to within an inch of her life, and spent 20 minutes explaining bedtime routines before Sophie finally pushed him toward the door. Go, she'd said. You're nervous talking again. I don't nervous talk. You do. It's annoying. He'd kissed the top of her head and left before he could change his mind. Rossetti's was crowded for a Saturday night, filled with couples and families and the warm smell of garlic and wine. He spotted Mara immediately, sitting at a corner table, wearing a green dress he'd never seen before. She'd done something different with her hair, left it down, curling past her shoulders. She saw him and waved, cautious. He made his way over, suddenly aware of every eye in the restaurant, every whisper that might be about them. Hi, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. Hi. Silence stretched. This was already going terribly. You look nice, he tried. Thank you. You look uncomfortable. I am uncomfortable. Mara's mouth twitched. Good. You should be. A waiter appeared, rattling off specials. They ordered pasta for her, chicken for him, and then they were alone again, nothing but bread and olive oil between them. So, Mara said, tell me about Sophie. He hadn't expected that. What do you want to know? Anything, everything. You're a single dad, right? What happened to her mom? Vanessa left when Sophie was 2, said she didn't sign up for motherhood. The words still tasted bitter. We divorced, she got a settlement, and I got full custody. Does she see Sophie? Twice a year, Christmas and Sophie's birthday. She sends cards sometimes. He broke off a piece of bread, not eating it. Sophie doesn't ask about her much anymore. That's hard. It's life. He met her eyes. What about you? You're raising your sister alone. Mara nodded. Our parents died 3 years ago. Car accident. Riley was 12, I was 27. There wasn't anyone else, so you stepped up. What else was I supposed to do? She said it like it wasn't heroic, like it was just the obvious choice. She's my sister. Still, that's a lot. Yeah, well, we manage. She took a sip of water. She's a pain in the ass sometimes, but she's smart. Gets straight A's. Wants to be a doctor. You must be proud. I am. Her expression softened. She's the best thing that ever happened to me, even if she did threaten to stab you. He laughed, surprised. She's got good instincts. She does. The food arrived. They ate in silence for a while, the initial awkwardness fading into something almost comfortable. Caleb watched Mara twirl pasta on her fork, watched her lick sauce off her thumb, and felt that same pull he'd been fighting for months. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. Why did you agree to this? After what I did, you could have just transferred and never looked back. Mara set down her fork, considering. Honestly? I don't know. Maybe because you apologized like you meant it. Maybe because Riley told me I'd regret it if I didn't at least see what this was. Smart kid. Too smart, she smiled. Or maybe I'm just curious. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone colder, more, corporate. She gestured vaguely. You're still kind of an asshole, but you're a human asshole. That's something. High praise. Don't let it go to your head. They finished eating. Caleb paid despite her protest, and they walked out into the cool evening air. The street was alive with people, music drifting from a bar down the block. So, Mara said, what now? Now I walk you to your car and hope you don't think I'm still a complete disaster. You are a disaster. But not complete? Jury's out. He walked her to a beat-up Honda parked 2 blocks down. She unlocked it, then turned to face him. Thank you for dinner, she said. Thank you for giving me a chance I didn't deserve. Yeah, well, she looked up at him, something unreadable in her expression. Don't make me regret it. I'll try not to. She started to get in the car, then stopped. Caleb? Yeah? If we do this, if we actually try this, it has to be real. No hiding. No using your money or position to make things easier. I won't be your secret, and I won't let you turn me into something I'm not. I don't want to change you. Good. Because I've worked too hard to get where I am to throw it away for anyone. Even you. He understood what she was saying, understood the risk she was taking, the way office relationships could destroy careers, especially hers. We'll do it right, he promised. However you want. Mara studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. We'll see. She drove away, taillights disappearing into traffic, and Caleb stood there on the sidewalk feeling like he'd just been given something precious and fragile that he had no idea how to hold without breaking. He pulled out his phone, texted Jeremy. Cancel the transfer. The response came fast. You're an idiot. Yeah, but I'm trying. Monday morning hit like a freight train. Caleb walked into the office with coffee he didn't need and a knot in his stomach that wouldn't quit. He'd spent Sunday with Sophie at the park, pushing her on swings and pretending he wasn't checking his phone every 5 minutes to see if Mara had texted. She hadn't. Jeremy was already at his desk when Caleb arrived, eyebrows raised in that knowing way that made Caleb want to fire him on principle. How'd it go? Jeremy asked. Fine. Just fine? We had dinner. We talked. She didn't throw her drink in my face. So, a win. Caleb didn't answer. He went into his office, closed the door, and tried to focus on the stack of contracts waiting for review. Tried and failed. Every time footsteps passed in the hallway, his head jerked up. Every notification on his phone made his pulse jump. It was pathetic. At 10:30, his door opened without a knock. Mara walked in carrying a folder, her expression all business. Mr. Whitmore, she said, formal as a stranger. The development team needs sign-off on the Portland expansion before the noon deadline. He stared at her. She'd pulled her hair back tight, wore a gray blazer that washed out her skin, and wouldn't quite meet his eyes. Mara, the budget breakdown's on page 3. They're asking for a 15% increase in initial capital, but I think we can negotiate it down to 10 if we push back on the infrastructure timeline. She set the folder on his desk and turned to leave. Wait. She paused, hand on the doorknob. Can we talk? He asked. We are talking. You know what I mean. I'm working, Mr. Whitmore. So are you. She glanced back, finally meeting his eyes. That's what we do here, right? Work. Then she was gone, door clicking shut behind her, and Caleb sat there, feeling like he'd been slapped. He grabbed his phone, typed out a text. What the hell was that? Her response came 30 seconds later. Professionalism. You should try it. He almost laughed, almost threw his phone across the room instead. Another text. You wanted to do this right. This is right. At work, I'm your employee. Anywhere else, we'll see. It made sense. He hated it, but it made sense. Mara was protecting herself, protecting both of them from the gossip and speculation that would shred her reputation if anyone suspected something was happening between them. Smart. Necessary. Absolutely maddening. He forced himself to open the folder, scan the budget breakdown. She was right about the infrastructure timeline. They could push back 2 months and save $250,000 without impacting the launch. He made notes in the margins, signed off, and texted Jeremy to send it back to development. Then he texted Mara. You were right about the timeline. I know. Dinner tomorrow? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Can't. Riley has a school thing. Wednesday? Maybe. I'll let you know. He had to settle for maybe. Had to sit through meetings and phone calls and another endless afternoon of pretending he gave a damn about quarterly projections when all he could think about was the way Mara had looked at him in his office. Cool, distant, like Saturday night had never happened. By 5 o'clock, most of the office had cleared out. Caleb was packing up his briefcase when his door opened again. Mara slipped inside, closed it behind her. Hey, she said quietly. Hey, yourself. She leaned against the door, arms crossed. I wasn't trying to be a jerk earlier. You were protecting yourself. Yeah. She bit her lip. People talk, Caleb. If anyone thinks I'm getting special treatment or that I'm sleeping my way up the ladder, I'm done. Everything I've worked for, gone. I know. Do you? Because you don't have to worry about that. You're the boss. You can date whoever you want and no one questions it. Me? I'm the poor girl who got lucky. The bitterness in her voice cut deep. I won't let that happen, he said. You can't control what people think. No, but I can make sure you never have a reason to doubt why you got where you are. He crossed to her, stopping just close enough to see the exhaustion in her eyes. At work, you're right. We keep it professional, completely. No favoritism, no special treatment. You earned your job and you'll keep earning it. And outside of work? Outside of work, I'm just a guy trying not to screw this up. She smiled, small and tired. You're doing okay so far. High praise. Don't get used to it. She pushed off the door. I should go. Riley's waiting. Mara? She turned back. Wednesday, he said. If you can. I'll take whatever time you can give me. She studied him for a moment, then nodded. Okay. Wednesday. This time when she left, it felt less like a slap and more like a promise. Wednesday arrived wrapped in rain and traffic that turned Caleb's usual 20-minute commute into an hour-long nightmare. He'd planned to leave the office early, get home in time to help Sophie with homework before the sitter arrived. Instead, he sat in gridlock on the expressway, watching the clock tick past 6. His phone rang. Mara. Hey, he answered, already cringing. I know I'm late. Traffic's a disaster. I'm not calling about tonight. Her voice was tight. I need a favor. That stopped him. What kind of favor? Riley's school called. She got into a fight. Is she okay? Physically, yeah. But they're suspending her for 3 days, and I have to go pick her up right now. I'm supposed to be in a meeting with the Portland team in 20 minutes, and if I miss it, go get your sister. I'll handle Portland. Caleb, you don't even know what the meeting's about. So tell me. She did. Rapid-fire details about contractor negotiations, and permit delays and budget reallocation that he only half absorbed. What mattered was the panic underneath her words, the way her breath hitched when she said Riley's name. "Send me the files," he said. "I'll cover it. Take care of your sister." "You sure?" "Positive. Go." She hung up without a goodbye. Caleb sat in traffic for another 10 minutes before the cars finally started moving, his mind already shifting gears. By the time he reached the office, Jeremy had the Portland files pulled up and the conference room prepped. The meeting ran long, 90 minutes of back and forth with contractors who wanted more money and fewer accountability measures. Caleb negotiated hard, got them down to an 8% increase instead of 15, and wrapped it up by 8 o'clock feeling like he'd been through a war. His phone had 3 missed calls from Sophie's sitter and 1 text from Mara. "Riley's fine. Thanks for covering. Rain check on dinner?" He called the sitter first. "Everything okay? Sophie won't go to bed until you get home. I tried reading to her, but she wants you." Guilt twisted in his chest. "Tell her I'm leaving now. 20 minutes." He made it in 15, jogging up to his apartment to find Sophie sitting on the couch in her pajamas, clutching the stuffed elephant she'd had since she was a baby. "Hey, sweetheart." He dropped his briefcase, scooped her up. "Sorry I'm late." "You're always late," she mumbled into his shoulder. "I know, I'm sorry." The sitter gathered her things, gave him a sympathetic smile, and left. Caleb carried Sophie to her room, tucked her into bed with the elephant. "1 story," he said. 2. 1.5. She giggled. "That's not a number." "Sure it is. It's the number that gets you to sleep before midnight." He read her favorite book about a girl who built a rocket ship out of cardboard boxes, then half of another one about a dragon who was afraid of heights. By the time he finished, Sophie's eyes were drooping. "Daddy?" she whispered. "Yeah? Are you happy?" The question caught him off guard. "What do you mean?" "You seem different, like, I don't know, less sad." He didn't know he'd been sad. Didn't know she'd noticed. "I'm working on it," he said finally. "Good." She yawned. "I like you better when you're not sad." She fell asleep before he could respond. He sat there for a while, watching her breathe, wondering how he'd managed to raise a kid who saw through him so completely. His phone buzzed. Mara again. "You still up?" "Yeah. Sophie just went down. How's Riley?" Mad at the world. The girl she fought called her scholarship trash. Jesus. "Yeah, I don't blame her for swinging, but now she's suspended and her record's dinged, and I'm trying not to lose my mind." He texted back without thinking. "Come over." 3 dots. Then, "What?" "Come over. Bring Riley if you want. We'll order pizza, let the kids hang out, give you a chance to breathe. Caleb, it's almost 9. "So? I'm up." "You're up. Sophie would love the company. This is a terrible idea." "Probably. You coming or not?" 10 minutes later, his doorbell rang. Mara stood in the hallway looking like she'd been through hell, hair falling out of its ponytail, makeup smudged under her eyes. Riley was behind her, arms crossed, radiating teenage fury. "Hi," Mara said. "Hi." He stepped aside. "Come in." They walked into his apartment, and he saw it through their eyes. The floor-to-ceiling windows, the furniture that cost more than most people's cars, the art on the walls that he'd bought because his decorator said it was important. Riley whistled low. "Damn." "Riley," Mara warned. "What?" "I'm just saying, this is like penthouse-level rich." "It's unnecessary," Caleb said. "But it's home." Sophie appeared in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy? Who's here?" "This is Mara and her sister Riley. They're going to hang out for a bit." Sophie lit up. She loved people, loved company, loved anything that broke the routine of just the 2 of them. "Hi, I'm Sophie. Do you want to see my room? I have a castle." Riley glanced at Mara, who nodded. "Go ahead." The girls disappeared down the hall, and suddenly Caleb was alone with Mara in his too-big living room, neither of them quite knowing what came next. "You want something to drink?" he asked. "Wine, if you have it." He poured them both a glass, and they sat on opposite ends of the couch, the space between them feeling bigger than it was. "Thanks for this," Mara said. "I didn't know where else to go. You can always come here." "Can I?" "We've been on 1 date, Caleb. This isn't what?" "I don't know. Normal? We're not normal." Normal's overrated. She laughed, sharp and exhausted. You would say that. They drank in silence for a while. Down the hall, he could hear Sophie chattering away, Riley's quieter responses. The sound of kids being kids. She's a good kid, Caleb said. Riley, you've done a good job with her. She punched a classmate, because that classmate attacked her first. Verbally, at least. He set his glass down. Riley's got fire. That's not a bad thing. It is when it gets her suspended. It's 3 days. She'll survive. Easy for you to say. You're not the one trying to get her into a decent college on a coordinator's salary. Mara's voice cracked. Do you know what private school costs, what SAT prep runs? I'm drowning, Caleb. I'm working 60 hours a week and it's still not enough. He wanted to offer money, wanted to fix it the way he fixed everything, throw cash at the problem until it disappeared. But he knew what that would do, how it would make Mara feel. What can I do? He asked instead. Nothing. That's the point. There's nothing anyone can do except me, and I'm running out of options. Let me help. No. Mara, I said no. She stood up, pacing to the windows. I won't be that girl, the one who dates the rich guy, and suddenly all her problems vanish because he writes a check. I won't. Even if it helps Riley? Especially if it helps Riley. She turned to face him. She needs to see me doing this on my own. Needs to know that hard work matters. That we don't take handouts just because they're available. He understood. Hated it, but understood. Okay, he said. No money. But if you need time off for meetings or college tours or whatever, I can make that happen without it looking suspicious. She considered that. Maybe. And if you need someone to vent to at 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night, my door's open. You're going to regret saying that. I really don't think I will. Mara came back to the couch, sat down closer this time. Close enough that he could smell her shampoo, see the freckles across her nose that makeup usually hid. I like you, she said quietly. I don't want to. It would be easier if I didn't, but I do. I like you too. This is complicated. Yeah. And it might not work. Probably won't, he agreed. She punched his arm. You're supposed to be optimistic. I'm realistic, but I'm also stubborn as hell, and I don't quit when I want something. Is that supposed to be romantic? Is it working? She kissed him. Soft, careful. Nothing like the elevator. This was a choice, not an impulse. A decision they were both making with open eyes. When she pulled back, she was smiling. Little bit. Down the hall, Sophie shrieked with laughter. Riley's voice followed, lower but amused. We should check on them, Mara said. Probably. Neither of them moved. Caleb? Yeah? If we do this, really do this, I need you to understand something. She took his hand, laced their fingers together. I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to quit my job or let you support me or become some kept woman who lunches with other rich wives. I have a life, a career, a sister who needs me. You have to be okay with all of that. I am. Are you? Because dating me isn't convenient. It's messy and complicated, and there's a teenage girl involved who will absolutely make your life difficult if she thinks you're not good enough. I'm counting on it, he said. Sophie needs someone who will make my life difficult, keeps me honest. Mara laughed, and it was the best sound he'd heard all week. They ordered pizza. The girls came out of Sophie's room, Riley looking less furious and more cautiously interested. They ate on the couch with a movie playing that no one really watched. Sophie tucked against Caleb's side and Riley sprawled on the floor with a slice in each hand. Your dad's weird, Riley told Sophie. I know, Sophie said happily. He thinks too loud. What does that even mean? It means he's always in his head, Mara said, glancing at Caleb. Overthinking everything. Sounds annoying. It is, Caleb and Mara said at the same time. The girls giggled. The movie played on. And for a little while, sitting in his too expensive apartment with people who didn't care about his money or his title, Caleb felt something he hadn't felt in years. Normal. By 11, Riley was asleep on the couch and Sophie had crashed in her room. Mara helped Caleb carry Riley to the guest bedroom, tucking her in with a gentleness that made his chest tight. I should stay, Mara whispered, in case she wakes up. Take my room. I'll sleep out here. Caleb, I'm not arguing. You need sleep, and my bed's more comfortable than the couch. She was too tired to fight. He gave her an old t-shirt to sleep in, showed her where the bathroom was, and left her to it. He made up the couch with a spare blanket, lay down, and stared at the ceiling. His phone buzzed. A text from Mara, even though she was just down the hall. Thank you. For what? For not making this weird. For helping with Riley. For being, I don't know, you. He smiled in the dark. Get some sleep. You too. He didn't sleep much, just lay there listening to the sounds of his apartment with people in it. Mara moving around in his room, Riley's soft snoring from the guest bedroom, Sophie's occasional mumble from down the hall. This was what he'd been missing, what Vanessa had walked away from because it wasn't glamorous or easy or fun. This messy, complicated thing called family. And he wanted it. Wanted all of it. Wanted to wake up to Mara making coffee in his kitchen and Riley giving him attitude over breakfast and Sophie showing off to her new friend. He was in so deep he could barely see daylight. Thursday morning came with rain hammering against the windows and Sophie shaking his shoulder. Daddy, there are people here. He sat up, disoriented. What? Riley's making pancakes and Mara's using your shower and I don't have clean clothes for school. Right, reality. He got up, found Sophie's uniform in the dryer, and wandered into the kitchen to find Riley at the stove, flipping pancakes like she owned the place. Morning, she said without looking at him. Morning. You know how to cook? Mara taught me. She said we can't live on takeout forever, even if you apparently can. Riley slid a perfect pancake onto a plate. These are for Sophie. You want some? Sure. She made him a plate, and they ate in surprisingly comfortable silence until Mara appeared, hair wet, wearing yesterday's clothes. I have to get home and change before work, she said. Riley, you're staying with Mrs. Chen today, remember? Riley groaned. She makes me watch soap operas. She's also free childcare, so you'll survive. Can I just stay here? Riley glanced at Caleb. I'll be quiet. You're suspended, not on vacation, Mara said. Mrs. Chen's expecting you. But, Riley, I'm not arguing. The teenager slumped but didn't push it. Caleb watched Mara handle her sister with the kind of firm kindness he was still learning with Sophie and felt something settle in his chest. This could work. Messy and complicated and absolutely not what he'd planned, but it could work. After Mara and Riley left, he got Sophie ready for school, dropped her off, and headed to the office. Jeremy took one look at him and smirked. Rough night? Great night, actually. You slept on your couch. How do you know that? You have pillow creases on your face and you're wearing the same shirt as yesterday. Caleb ignored him and went into his office. He had back-to-back meetings until noon, a conference call with investors that ran long, and a mountain of paperwork that needed signatures. Mara didn't come by his office, didn't text except for one message at lunch. Riley says thanks for the pancakes. She made them. Still, she liked feeling useful. He thought about that. About a 15-year-old who punched a classmate for calling her trash, who made perfect pancakes and watched soap operas, with a neighbor and wanted so badly to feel like she mattered. She can come over whenever she wants. Both of you. Careful, we might take you up on that. I'm counting on it. The week blurred into routine. Mara kept things professional at work, all business and budget reports. After hours, she'd text him about Riley's suspension hearing or ask his opinion on college prep programs. Once, she called him at midnight because Riley had woken up crying from a nightmare about their parents, and Mara didn't know what to do. Just be there, Caleb had told her. That's all you can do. What if it's not enough? It will be. You're enough. He meant it. Watching her juggle work and Riley and the constant pressure of trying to be everything to everyone, she was more than enough. She was extraordinary. Friday night, he picked Sophie up from school and found Mara waiting in the parking lot, Riley beside her. Hey, Mara said. We were wondering if you and Sophie wanted to get dinner. Nothing fancy, just the four of us. Sophie bounced on her toes. Can we, Daddy? Please? He looked at Mara, at the hope in her eyes, and knew this was a test. A chance to prove this wasn't just about stolen moments in his apartment or secret texts after dark. Yeah, he said. Let's do it. They went to a diner that smelled like grease and coffee, sat in a cracked vinyl booth, and ordered burgers and milkshakes. Riley and Sophie bonded over a shared hatred of math homework. Mara stole fries off his plate, and somewhere between the terrible jukebox music and Sophie's sticky chocolate fingerprints on his sleeve, Caleb realized he was happy. Not the careful, controlled kind of happy he'd built his life around. The messy, unpredictable kind that came from people who saw him at his worst and stuck around anyway. Walking back to the cars, Sophie grabbed Riley's hand. "Will you come over tomorrow? We can build the castle bigger." Riley glanced at Mara. "Can I?" "If Caleb doesn't mind." "I don't mind," he said quickly. "Then yeah, I'll come over." Sophie cheered. Mara smiled, soft and real, and Caleb felt the ground shift under his feet. This was happening. This thing between them, this fragile, complicated thing, it was real. Later, after he'd tucked Sophie into bed and cleaned chocolate off every surface in his kitchen, his phone rang. Mara. "Hey," he answered. "Hey, Riley's asleep. I just wanted to talk." "About what?" "About how terrifying this is." Her voice was quiet. "About how I keep waiting for you to realize I'm not worth the trouble. You are worth it." "You don't know that." "I do." He sat on his couch, staring out at the city lights. "You're smart and stubborn, and you make me want to be better. You're raising a kid on your own while building a career, and you haven't asked me for a damn thing except time. How could you not be worth it?" She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'm falling for you." His heart stopped. "Yeah? Yeah. And it scares the hell out of me." "Me too." "Good. At least we're scared together." They talked until past midnight about nothing and everything. About Sophie's upcoming school play and Riley's college dreams, and the way Mara's apartment had a leak in the bathroom that her landlord refused to fix. And when they finally hung up, Caleb lay in bed knowing that whatever came next, gossip, complications, the million ways this could fall apart, he was all in. He'd found something real in an elevator, kissed it into existence without permission, and somehow, impossibly, it had kissed him back. The whispers started 3 weeks later, quiet at first, easy to ignore. Caleb noticed them in the break room, conversations that stopped when he walked past, eyes that tracked him and then flicked away. He didn't think much of it until Jeremy dropped a stack of reports on his desk with an expression that meant trouble. "What?" Caleb asked. "People are talking. People always talk." "About you and Mara." Caleb's pen stopped moving. "What are they saying?" "That she's sleeping with you, that she got promoted because of it." "She didn't get promoted. She got lead coordinator on the Seattle project last week. People noticed." Jeremy sat down, lowered his voice. "Look, I don't care what you do in your personal life, but this is getting messy, and Mara's the one who's going to take the hit." Caleb already knew that, had known it from the beginning, but hearing it out loud made his chest tight with anger that had nowhere to go. "Who's talking?" "Does it matter? It's out there now." Jeremy stood. "I'm just saying, be careful, both of you." After he left, Caleb sat staring at nothing, his mind racing through scenarios and solutions. He could confront the gossip head on, call a meeting, make it clear that Mara's work spoke for itself, or he could ignore it, hope it died down on its own. Both options felt wrong. He texted Mara, "We need to talk." Her response came fast. "I know. Meet me after work?" They met at a coffee shop 6 blocks from the office, far enough that no one would see them. Mara was already there when he arrived, sitting at a corner table with her hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched. "You heard," he said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Hard not to." "Linda from accounting asked if I was enjoying my new benefits package." Mara's laugh was bitter. "Subtle, right? I'll talk to HR. Make it clear that..." "That what? That we're not sleeping together?" She met his eyes. "Because we are. Not that it's anyone's business, but the truth doesn't matter. They've already decided what this is." "Then I'll prove them wrong. Show them your work, your numbers." "Caleb." She reached across the table, stopped his hand. "You can't fix this. The second we started dating, this became inevitable. I knew it. I just didn't think it would happen so fast." "So what do we do?" "I don't know." She pulled her hand back, wrapped it around her mug again. "Part of me wants to quit. Transfer to another city, start over where no one knows me." His stomach dropped. "Don't." "Why not? It would solve everything." "It would solve nothing. You'd still be running, and I'd still be the asshole who let you go. He leaned forward. We knew this would be hard. We knew people would talk. But we also decided we didn't care. Remember? That was before it got real. Before I had to sit in meetings and wonder if anyone's actually listening to me or if they're just thinking about who I'm sleeping with. They're listening. Your ideas are good. Better than good. You're biased. I'm honest. He caught her eyes, held them. You got lead coordinator because you're the best person for the job. Not because we're together. Not because I pulled strings. You earned it. Did I? Because I'm not sure anymore. Her voice cracked. I worked my entire life to get where I am, and now it feels like it doesn't matter. Like everything I did was just erased the second you kissed me in that elevator. The truth of it hit him hard. She was right. No matter what she accomplished, people would always wonder, would always whisper, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For kissing you that day, for putting you in this position. Mara shook her head. Don't apologize for that. I kissed you back, remember? I said yes to dinner. I let this happen because I wanted it. She took a shaky breath. I just didn't realize what it would cost. They sat in silence, the coffee shop humming with conversations that had nothing to do with them. Outside, rain started to fall, streaking the windows. I don't want to lose you, Caleb said finally. You might not have a choice. There's always a choice. Is there? She looked at him, exhausted. Because right now it feels like I have to choose between you and my career, and that's not fair. No, it's not. So what do I do? He didn't have an answer, didn't have a solution that would make this easy or clean. All he had was the truth. You do what you've always done. You work harder than everyone else. You prove them wrong, and you don't let anyone, not me, not them, make you doubt what you're worth. Mara stared at him for a long moment, then laughed, soft and sad. You make it sound simple. It's not. But you're not simple either. You're stubborn and brilliant, and you don't quit. So don't start now. She wiped her eyes, even though she wasn't crying. I hate that you're right. Get used to it. This time her laugh was more real. She finished her coffee and they walked out into the rain together, not touching, careful to keep space between them where anyone might see. But when they reached her car, she grabbed his jacket, pulled him close, and kissed him hard enough to bruise. I'm not quitting, she said against his mouth. Not the job, not you. But if this gets worse, if it starts affecting Riley or Sophie, we're done. Understand? Understood. She got in her car and drove away, and Caleb stood in the rain watching until her taillights disappeared, wondering how something so right could feel so impossible. The next morning, he walked into the office with a plan. He called a meeting with department heads, laid out new promotion criteria that focused solely on performance metrics, and made it clear that favoritism of any kind would result in immediate termination. He didn't mention Mara. Didn't have to. Everyone knew what he was doing. Linda from accounting cornered him after. That was quite a speech. It needed to be said. Because of Mara Collins? He looked at her, really looked, and saw the calculation in her eyes. She wanted him to confirm it, to give her ammunition. Because merit matters, he said evenly. If you have a problem with that, my door's open. She didn't take him up on it, but the whispers didn't stop. If anything, they got worse. Caleb heard them in elevators, in the parking garage, even in the executive lounge where people should have known better. Mara's name was always followed by his, her accomplishments always shadowed by speculation. He watched her handle it with a grace that made him furious on her behalf. She showed up early, stayed late, worked twice as hard as anyone else just to prove she belonged. She didn't complain, didn't break, just kept going. But he could see the toll it was taking. The way she stopped eating lunch in the break room, started taking calls in empty conference rooms. How she avoided eye contact in meetings, kept her voice measured and professional even when people questioned her ideas. It was killing her, and he didn't know how to stop it. 3 weeks in, she came to his office after everyone had gone home. She closed the door, leaned against it, and said, I need you to stop defending me. What? Every time someone questions my work, you jump in. Every meeting, every presentation, you're there, backing me up. She crossed her arms. It's making it worse. I'm supporting you. You're proving their point, that I need you to succeed, that I can't do this on my own. The accusation stung because it was true. He had been defending her, running interference, making sure no one could question her competence without going through him first. I'm trying to help. I know, but I don't need help. I need you to let me fight my own battles. Even if you lose? Especially if I lose, because at least then it's mine. She moved closer, her expression softening. I know you mean well, but you can't protect me from this. The more you try, the more it looks like I'm hiding behind you. He wanted to argue, wanted to tell her she was wrong, that he could fix this if she just let him. But he knew what that would sound like. The same entitled bullshit he'd spent his whole life trying not to become. Okay, he said. I'll back off. Thank you. She kissed him, soft and quick, then left before anyone could see. Backing off was harder than he'd expected. Every instinct screamed at him to step in when someone undermined her in meetings or questioned her budget proposals. But he forced himself to stay quiet, to let Mara handle it herself. And she did. She handled it brilliantly, with facts and logic that left no room for argument. Slowly, grudgingly, people started to listen. Not everyone. There would always be people like Linda who looked for reasons to tear others down, but enough that Mara could breathe a little easier. Still, the damage was done. The gossip had created a divide in the office. Those who respected Mara for her work, and those who saw her as nothing more than the boss's girlfriend. And no amount of performance metrics or professional boundaries could bridge that gap. Friday afternoon, Caleb got a call from Sophie's school. She'd been in a fight. A fight? He was already grabbing his keys. Sophie doesn't fight. She pushed another student off the playground equipment, the principal said. The other child has a sprained wrist. We need you to come in immediately. He made it to the school in record time, found Sophie sitting outside the principal's office with tear-streaked cheeks and dirt on her uniform. She looked so small, so unlike herself, that his anger evaporated. Hey, sweetheart. He crouched down. What happened? Madison said mean things. What kind of mean things? Sophie's lip trembled. She said Mara's only nice to me because you're rich, that she doesn't really like us, she just wants your money. His chest went cold. And you pushed her? She wouldn't stop talking. I told her to stop and she didn't, so Sophie started crying harder. I'm sorry, Daddy. I didn't mean to hurt her. He pulled her into his arms, letting her sob into his shoulder. Over her head, he could see the principal watching through the office window, probably wondering what kind of father raised a kid who solved problems with violence. The kind who was so focused on his own mess that he didn't notice it spilling onto his daughter. The meeting with the principal was brutal. Sophie was suspended for 2 days, and the other girl's parents were threatening legal action. Caleb apologized, promised it wouldn't happen again, and wrote a check for any medical expenses. But the real damage wasn't to Madison's wrist. It was to Sophie, who sat silent in the car on the drive home, staring out the window with an expression too old for her face. I'm sorry this happened, Caleb said. It's my fault. No, it's not. I shouldn't have pushed her. No, you shouldn't have. But she also shouldn't have said those things about Mara. Sophie turned to look at him. Are they true? What? Does Mara only like us because you have money? No, absolutely not. How do you know? He didn't have a good answer for that. Didn't have proof beyond the way Mara looked at Sophie like she mattered, the way she showed up even when it was hard, the way she'd built a place in their lives that had nothing to do with his bank account. Because I know her, he said finally. And so do you. You think someone faking would spend Saturday mornings building cardboard castles, or listen to you talk about dinosaurs for an hour straight? Sophie considered this. Probably not. Definitely not. He reached over, squeezed her hand. People are going to say things, Sophie, mean things, untrue things, and it's going to hurt, but you can't let them make you doubt the people who actually care about you. Even if everyone believes them? Especially then. They got home to find Mara waiting on his doorstep, Riley beside her. The moment Mara saw Sophie's face, she was moving, pulling the little girl into a hug. I heard what happened, she said. Are you okay? Sophie nodded against her shoulder. Good. Because I brought ice cream, the good kind, with cookie dough. I'm suspended. I know. Ice cream helps with that. They went inside and Mara set Sophie up at the kitchen table with a bowl big enough to drown in. Riley sat next to her, quiet for once, and Caleb pulled Mara aside. How did you know? The school called me too, listed me as an emergency contact. She glanced at him. You did that? Last week. I should have asked first. No, it's good. She looked back at Sophie. What did Madison say to her? He told her, watched her face go tight with anger that matched his own. Kids are brutal, she said. They learn it from somewhere. Yeah, usually their parents. She turned to him. This is what I was afraid of, not just the office gossip, but it bleeding into everything else, into Sophie's life. Riley's. I know. So what do? We keep going. We show them they're wrong. And if they don't care? If they keep believing the worst no matter what we do? He didn't have an answer for that either. That night, after ice cream and a movie that no one paid attention to, after Sophie had fallen asleep on the couch and Riley had retreated to the guest room with her phone, Mara and Caleb sat on his balcony looking out at the city. I've been thinking, Mara said. About? About going public, making it official. Caleb turned to look at her. You said you didn't want that it would make things worse. It's already worse. At least if we're public, we control the narrative. She pulled her knees up to her chest. Right now, people are making up their own story. Maybe if we tell them the truth, they'll have less to speculate about. Or they'll have more ammunition. Maybe, but I'm tired of hiding. Tired of pretending we're not together when everyone already knows. She met his eyes. I want to be able to hold your hand at work events. Want to introduce you as my boyfriend instead of my boss. Want to stop feeling like I'm doing something wrong. You're not doing anything wrong. Then why does it feel like I am? He reached for her hand, laced their fingers together. If we do this, if we go public, there's no taking it back. It'll be out there. Permanent. I know. And people will still talk. They'll still doubt you. Let them. I'm done caring what they think. She squeezed his hand. I care what you think. What Sophie thinks, what Riley thinks. Everyone else can go to hell. He laughed, surprised. That's very un-Mara of you. Maybe I'm tired of being Mara. Maybe I want to be messy and complicated and not give a damn if it makes people uncomfortable. I like messy and complicated. Good. Because that's what you're getting. They kissed on the balcony with the city sprawled below them, and for the first time in weeks, Caleb felt like they might actually survive this. The decision to go public came at the company's annual gala, a black tie event that Caleb normally avoided but couldn't skip as CEO. He'd planned to go alone, make an appearance, and leave early. But Mara had other ideas. I'm going with you, she said when he mentioned it. You don't have to. I want to. If we're doing this, we're doing it right. So she bought a dress she couldn't afford, dark green, simple, stunning, and met him at his apartment the night of the gala. Riley came too, staying with Sophie and a sitter who was probably being paid enough to retire early. You look beautiful, Caleb said when Mara walked out of his bedroom. You clean up okay yourself. They arrived at the hotel together, walked through the lobby side by side. The moment they entered the ballroom, conversation stuttered, eyes tracked them, whispers spread like wildfire. Mara's hand tightened on his arm, but she didn't pull away. Ready? He murmured. Not even a little. They made their way through the crowd, stopping to talk to department heads and board members and investors who'd flown in from overseas. Most people were polite, professional. Some were genuinely warm, congratulating them or saying they made a nice couple. Others weren't so kind. Linda was there with a date, and she made a point of coming over. Mara, what a surprise seeing you here. Linda. I didn't realize coordinators were invited to these things. They are when they're dating the CEO, Mara said evenly. Linda's smile was sharp. How convenient for you. Actually, it's terrifying, but thanks for your concern. Caleb bit back a laugh. Mara handled Linda like a professional, stayed calm when he wanted to tell the woman exactly where she could shove her opinions. When Linda finally walked away, he leaned close. You're incredible. I'm faking it. Still incredible. They made it through dinner, through speeches and awards and the painfully long presentation about quarterly earnings. And when the dancing started, Caleb stood and offered his hand. Dance with me. Everyone's watching. I know. Let them. She took his hand and they walked onto the floor together. The music was slow, classical, the kind that required actual dancing instead of just swaying. Caleb pulled Mara close, felt her settle against him like she belonged there. You okay? He asked. Ask me later. They danced, and the room watched. He could feel the weight of 100 eyes, 100 judgments, could hear the whispers starting up again. But Mara didn't pull away, didn't hide her face or try to create distance. She looked at him like he was the only person in the room, and that was all that mattered. When the song ended, she kissed him, right there, in front of everyone. It wasn't dramatic or showy, just a simple kiss that said, "This is real, and we're not hiding anymore." The room went silent. Then someone started clapping, then another and another, until half the room was applauding and the other half was stunned into silence. Mara pulled back, her cheeks flushed. Did we just do that? Yeah. Was it stupid? Probably. She laughed, breathless and bright, and Caleb knew they'd be okay. Not perfect, not easy, but okay. The aftermath of the gala was complicated. Some people respected them more for going public. Others doubled down on their assumptions, convinced that Mara was using Caleb or that he was too blinded by attraction to see it. But something had shifted. Mara stopped apologizing for their relationship, stopped trying to prove she deserved her position, and just did the work. And slowly, grudgingly, people started to respect that. Not everyone. There would always be people like Linda, people who needed someone to look down on to feel better about themselves. But enough that Mara could walk through the office without feeling like she was on trial. 2 months after the gala, she got an offer from a competitor. They wanted her to lead their entire development division, with a salary that was triple what she was making. She told Caleb about it over dinner at his apartment, Riley and Sophie doing homework at the kitchen table. "What did you say?" he asked. "I told them I'd think about it." His heart sank. "Are you considering it?" "I don't know. It's a lot of money, Caleb. Enough to send Riley to any college she wants. Enough to stop worrying about rent and groceries and whether I can afford a new winter coat." "I could." "Don't. We've talked about this." She set down her fork. "I need to make this decision on my own, without your money influencing it." "Okay. Then tell me what you want. Not what makes sense financially. What do you actually want?" Mara was quiet for a long time. "I want to stay. I like my team. I like the work. And I don't want to run from the gossip just because it's easier somewhere else. Then stay. But the money, we'll figure it out. Between your salary and mine, we can make Riley's college work. And if we can't, we'll find scholarships or loans or whatever it takes." He reached across the table, took her hand. "Don't leave because you think you have to. Leave if you want to, but don't let money make the decision for you." She stared at him, eyes bright. "You really mean that?" Every word. She turned down the offer the next day. Her boss was thrilled, immediately promoted her to senior coordinator with a raise that wasn't triple her salary, but was enough to breathe easier. And Mara threw herself into the Seattle project like her life depended on it. Watching her work, watching her prove everyone wrong, not through declarations but through results, Caleb fell even harder. This was the woman he wanted. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Someone who fought for what she believed in and didn't back down when things got hard. Someone who made him want to be better. And when she came to his office 6 weeks later and closed the door behind her, he knew something had changed. "I've been thinking," she said. About us. About where this is going." She sat down across from his desk. "We've been together almost 6 months now, and I think it's time we talked about the future." His pulse kicked up. "What about it?" "I love you," she said simply. "I'm in love with you, and I think you feel the same way, even if you haven't said it." "I do. Feel the same way, I mean." The words came easier than he'd expected. "I love you." Her smile was brilliant. "Good. Because I want more than secret dinners and stolen moments. I want to know if this is going somewhere, or if we're just existing." "It's going somewhere. Wherever you want it to go." "Then I want to meet your parents. Want you to really know Riley, not just the version of her that shows up for pancakes in movies. Want to figure out what we look like when we're not fighting to prove ourselves to everyone else." "Okay. Okay. Okay." He stood, came around the desk, pulled her up into his arms. "Let's figure it out, all of it." She kissed him, and it felt like a promise, like the beginning of something that would be messy and complicated and absolutely worth fighting for. Outside his office, the company hummed with its usual noise. People working, gossiping, living their lives. And somewhere in all of that, Mara had carved out a place for herself that had nothing to do with him and everything to do with her own talent and determination. She didn't need saving, she'd already saved herself. All Caleb had to do was keep up. Meeting Caleb's parents turned out to be less terrifying and more awkward than Mara had anticipated. They flew in from Connecticut on a Saturday morning, descended on his apartment like well-dressed hurricanes, and immediately started rearranging his life. His mother, Patricia, took one look at the living room and said, "Caleb, this furniture's hideous. Who decorated this place, your accountant?" "My decorator, actually." "Fire them." His father, Robert, was quieter, but no less invasive. He spent 10 minutes inspecting Caleb's bookshelves before declaring that anyone who owned that many business biographies and 0 novels needed therapy. Sophie loved them instantly. She dragged Patricia to her room to show off the cardboard castle, and Patricia, dressed in Chanel and heels that cost more than Mara's rent, sat cross-legged on the floor and helped add a new tower. Mara stood in the kitchen with Caleb, watching through the doorway, feeling completely out of place. "They're a lot," Caleb said. "They're wonderful." "Give it time." Patricia emerged from Sophie's room, spotted Mara, and made a beeline. "You must be Mara. I've heard so much about you." "All good things, I hope." "Not even a little." Caleb said you're stubborn, argumentative, and refused to let him help you with anything. Mara glanced at Caleb, who looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him. "That about sums it up," Mara said. Patricia laughed, bright and genuine. "Good. He needs someone who won't let him bulldoze everything. His ex-wife was a pushover, terrible influence." "Mom?" "What?" "It's true. Vanessa was perfectly lovely and absolutely wrong for you." She turned back to Mara. "You, on the other hand, have backbone. I like that." Lunch was at some restaurant with white tablecloths and a wine list longer than the menu. Robert ordered for the table without asking what anyone wanted, and Patricia spent 20 minutes grilling Mara about her job, her family, her plans for the future. "So you're raising your sister alone," Patricia said. "Yes." "That's admirable. How old is she?" 15. She'll be 16 in March. "College plans?" "Pre-med. She wants to be a doctor." Patricia nodded approvingly. "Smart girl." "What about you? Any plans to move up in the company? Or are you content where you are?" The question had teeth hidden in it. Mara chose her words carefully. "I'm working on a major project right now. If it goes well, I'll be in a good position for advancement. And if it doesn't? Then I'll find another project and make that one go well." "Persistent. I like that too." Patricia sipped her wine. "My son tells me people at the office have been unkind." Mara shot Caleb a look. He shrugged, guilty. "Some people have opinions," Mara said. "I can't control that." "No, but you can control how you respond. Are you responding?" "By doing my job better than anyone else." "Yes." Patricia smiled, sharp and satisfied. "Good answer." The rest of lunch passed in a blur of conversation that Mara couldn't quite keep up with. Robert and Caleb argued about business strategy. Patricia told embarrassing stories about Caleb's childhood. Sophie ate 3 desserts and charmed everyone at the table, and Mara sat there wondering what she'd gotten herself into. After lunch, Patricia pulled her aside while the men were paying the bill. "Can I give you some advice?" she asked. "Do I have a choice?" "Not really." Patricia's expression softened. "My son is difficult. He thinks he has to fix everything, control everything, carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. And he'll try to do that with you too. I've noticed. Don't let him. He needs someone who can stand on their own, who doesn't need rescuing." She paused. "But he also needs someone who'll let him be vulnerable. He hasn't had that in a long time." Mara wasn't sure what to say to that. Patricia squeezed her hand once, then went to collect Sophie, and Mara was left standing there, trying to process everything. That night, after his parents had left and Sophie was asleep, Mara and Caleb sat on his couch in comfortable silence. "Your mom's intense," Mara said. "That's one word for it." "She loves you. She loves controlling things. I just happen to be one of them." Mara nudged him. "She also gave me the 'don't break my son's heart' speech. Very subtle." "She didn't." "She absolutely did. Used different words, but the message was clear." Caleb pulled her closer, pressed a kiss to her temple. "What did you say?" "Nothing. I just nodded and smiled." She looked up at him. "Should I be worried that your parents already like me?" Isn't that supposed to take longer? You're worried they like you? I'm worried they like the idea of me. The girl who doesn't need your money, who fights for what she wants. That's a good story. But what happens when the story gets complicated? Then it gets complicated. They're not going anywhere, and neither am I. She wanted to believe him, wanted to think this could work long term, that they could build something real. But there was still so much uncertainty, so many ways this could fall apart. Riley wants to meet them, she said. Yeah? She's been asking about your family, wants to know if they're as weird as you are. He laughed. Weirder? When do you want to do it? Maybe next month? Give everyone time to prepare. Or we could do it sooner, rip off the Band-Aid. You really want to subject Riley to your mother that soon? My mother will love Riley. Anyone who threatens to stab people on behalf of their sister is Patricia Whitmore's kind of person. He was probably right. The thought was both comforting and terrifying. The meeting happened 2 weeks later at Caleb's apartment again because it was neutral territory and had enough space for everyone to spread out. Riley showed up dressed in ripped jeans and a t-shirt with a band logo Mara didn't recognize. Her hair dyed a shocking shade of purple that she'd done the night before without permission. You look punk, Sophie said admiringly. Thanks. You look like a fairy princess. Sophie beamed. Patricia took one look at Riley's hair and said, bold choice. I like it. Riley blinked. You do? Absolutely. When I was your age, I dyed mine green. My mother nearly disowned me. Patricia smiled. You pull it off better than I did. Just like that, Riley relaxed. She spent the afternoon talking to Patricia about music and school and her college plans, while Robert grilled her on her grades with the intensity of a college admissions counselor. Straight A's, Riley said, except chemistry. I got a B+ last semester. What happened? The teacher hates me. Or you didn't study hard enough. Riley's jaw set. I studied plenty. He just doesn't like that I question his methods. Robert laughed. Good. Never stop questioning. The world needs more people who think critically, not less. Mara watched it all unfold from the kitchen, where she was helping Caleb put together snacks no one would eat. This was her family now, messy, complicated, loud. And somehow, impossibly, it was working. They like her, Caleb said. Everyone likes Riley when she's not threatening to stab them. She gets that from you. I've never threatened to stab anyone. No, but you've got the same fire. The same refusal to back down. He pulled her close, kissed her softly. It's one of the things I love about you. You love that I'm stubborn and difficult? I love that you know what you want and you fight for it, even when it's hard. She kissed him back, slower this time, and for a moment everything else faded away. The noise from the living room, the uncertainty about the future, the constant pressure of trying to prove herself, all of it gone. Then Sophie yelled, "They're kissing again!" And the moment shattered. Riley made gagging noises. Patricia laughed. Robert said something about young love that made Caleb groan. And Mara thought, this is it. This is what I want. 3 months later, the Seattle project wrapped successfully. Mara's team had come in under budget and ahead of schedule, and the client was thrilled enough to request her specifically for their next development. Her boss called her into his office and offered her a promotion to project director, with a salary that finally felt like breathing room. She said yes before he'd finished explaining the benefits package. That night, she took Caleb and the girls out to celebrate. They went to the same diner where they'd had burgers months ago, ordered too much food, and stuffed themselves until they couldn't move. Speech, Riley demanded, raising her milkshake. I don't do speeches. Come on, you got promoted. Say something inspirational. Mara looked around the table. At Riley, who'd grown 3 inches and was already taller than her. At Sophie, who had chocolate on her face and stars in her eyes. At Caleb, who was watching her like she'd hung the moon. Okay, fine. She cleared her throat. A year ago, I was barely holding it together. Working too much, sleeping too little, convinced that if I stopped moving for even a second, everything would fall apart. She paused. Then this idiot kissed me in an elevator, and everything changed. Hey, Caleb protested. I'm not finished. Everything changed, and it was terrifying. I thought I'd lose my job, lose my credibility, lose myself. But instead, I found, her voice caught. I found family. People who see me, who support me, who make me want to be better. Riley's eyes were suspiciously bright. Sophie was openly crying. So here's to not falling apart, Mar continued. Here's to fighting for what matters and letting people in even when it's scary. And here's to whoever invented milkshakes, because these are really good. They clinked glasses, laughing through tears, and Mara felt something settle in her chest, something that felt a lot like home. The promotion changed things. Not at the office, people still whispered, still questioned whether she deserved it. But Mara had stopped caring. She knew her worth now, knew what she'd accomplished. And if other people wanted to diminish that, that was their problem. It changed things at home too. With the extra money, she could afford a better apartment for her and Riley. Not in Caleb's building. She refused to let him subsidize her life, but close enough that Sophie could walk over after school. 2 bedrooms, updated kitchen, a landlord who actually fixed things when they broke. Riley loved it. She claimed the smaller bedroom, painted it purple to match her hair, and hung posters of bands Mara had never heard of on every available surface. "It's perfect," Riley said the day they moved in. "It's loud," Mara replied, eyeing the posters. "That's what makes it perfect." Caleb helped them move, along with Sophie and a team of movers he'd hired despite Mara's protests. By the end of the day, boxes were everywhere and they were all exhausted. "Pizza?" Caleb suggested. "Again?" Riley groaned. "You got a better idea?" "Chinese food. The place on 3rd makes amazing dumplings." So they ordered Chinese, ate, sitting on the floor surrounded by boxes, and Mara looked around her new living room thinking about how far she'd come. A year ago, she'd been drowning. Now she was swimming. Not perfectly, not without effort, but swimming nonetheless. "What are you thinking about?" Caleb asked later, after the girls had crashed in front of a movie. "How weird life is. How one stupid moment can change everything." "You calling our kiss stupid?" "I'm calling your decision to kiss me without asking stupid. The kiss itself was pretty good." "Just pretty good?" She kissed him to shut him up, and it turned into something deeper, something that made her forget about boxes and moving and everything except the feel of him against her. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Caleb said, "I want to ask you something." "Okay." "Not now, soon, but I want you to know it's coming." Her heart jumped. "What kind of something?" "The kind that requires a ring and a lot of courage." She stared at him. "Caleb, I'm not asking tonight. You just moved. You just got promoted. There's too much happening." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "But I'm going to ask. And I wanted you to have time to think about your answer." "That's not fair. You can't just tell me you're going to propose and then not do it." "I can, actually. I just did." She wanted to be mad. Wanted to tell him he was ridiculous and presumptuous and moving too fast. But all she felt was happy. Terrifyingly. Wonderfully happy. "You're sure?" she asked. "About you?" "Always. Even though I'm difficult and stubborn and I make your life complicated?" "Especially because of that." They kissed again, slower this time, and Mara let herself imagine it. Marrying Caleb. Blending their families officially. Building a life that was theirs. Not his or hers, but genuinely theirs. Should have been scary. Instead, it felt inevitable. The proposal happened 2 months later, at a charity gala even bigger than the one where they'd gone public. Caleb had been planning it for weeks, apparently, though he'd sworn Jeremy to secrecy and somehow managed to keep it from Mara entirely. She should have suspected something when he insisted she get a new dress. Should have known when Patricia called to ask what her ring size was, then claimed it was for a Christmas present. Should have put the pieces together when Riley and Sophie started giggling every time someone mentioned the gala. But she didn't. She was too busy with work, with preparations for Riley's college applications, with the million small things that filled her days. So when Caleb pulled her onto the dance floor that night, she thought it was just another dance. Another moment in a sea of moments they'd been building together. Then the music stopped. The lights came up slightly, and Caleb dropped to one knee right there in the middle of the ballroom, in front of 500 people. "Oh my God," Mara breathed. "Mara Collins," Caleb said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "A year ago, I kissed you in an elevator and changed my entire life. You made me want to be better, made me believe I could be better. And every day since, you've proven that taking a chance on love, even when it's messy and complicated and absolutely terrifying, is worth it." He pulled out a ring. Small, elegant, nothing ostentatious. Exactly what she would have picked for herself. I love you. I love your strength and your stubbornness and the way you fight for what matters. I love watching you with Riley, with Sophie. I love that you make me laugh and keep me honest and refuse to let me get away with anything." He paused. "Will you marry me?" The room held its breath. Mara could see people at the tables, phones out, recording this moment. Could see Patricia dabbing at her eyes. Could see Riley and Sophie standing with the sitter at the edge of the crowd, both of them bouncing with excitement. "You planned this," she said. "I did. In front of everyone. I wanted them to know, wanted there to be no doubt that you're the person I choose, that you're not some secret or scandal, you're the woman I love." Tears were running down her face now, ruining her makeup. "You're so dramatic." "Is that a yes?" "Yes, you idiot, of course it's yes." He slid the ring on her finger, stood, and kissed her while the room erupted in applause. And Mara kissed him back, not caring who was watching or what they thought, because this was real, and it was hers, and no one could take it away. Later, after the congratulations, and the champagne, and the endless stream of people wanting to see the ring, they escaped to a quiet corner. "We're engaged," Mara said, still trying to process it. "We are. People are going to say I trapped you, that I got pregnant or manipulated you, or let them say whatever they want. We know the truth. Do we? Because sometimes I still can't believe this is real." She looked at the ring on her finger. 6 months ago, I was nobody. Now I'm engaged to a billionaire and people are taking my picture and I don't know how to be this person. "You don't have to be anyone except who you already are." Caleb pulled her close. "That's who I fell in love with. Not some polished version, not someone trying to fit in. Just you." She leaned into him, letting his steadiness anchor her. "I'm scared." "Me too." "Good. At least we're scared together." They stood there swaying slightly to music that had started up again, and Mara thought about everything that had led to this moment. The elevator, the kiss, the gossip, and the fights, and the slow building of something real. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was theirs. 3 weeks later, Mara took a pregnancy test on a whim. She'd been tired lately, emotional in ways that didn't make sense. Riley had joked that she was turning into Caleb with all the overthinking. The test came back positive. She stared at it for 10 minutes, sitting on the bathroom floor of her apartment, trying to figure out how she felt. They weren't married yet. Hell, they'd only been engaged for 3 weeks. This was too soon, too fast, too everything. But underneath the panic, there was something else. Something that felt a lot like joy. She called Caleb. "Hey," he answered. "What's up? Are you sitting down?" "Should I be?" "Probably." She heard rustling, then, "Okay. I'm sitting. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. At least, I don't think it's wrong. I'm not sure how to—" She took a breath. "I'm pregnant." Silence. "Caleb? You're sure?" "I took 3 tests. They were all positive." More silence. Then, "I'm coming over." "You don't have to. I'm already in the car." He hung up. 15 minutes later, he was at her door looking disheveled and panicked and hopeful all at once. "Hi," she said. "Hi." He came inside, closed the door. "You're pregnant." "Yeah." "We're having a baby." "Looks like it." He started pacing. Okay, we can do this. We'll move up the wedding, or we won't. It doesn't matter. We'll figure out space. My apartment's big enough, or we can get a house. Sophie will be thrilled. Riley will probably threaten to stab me again for getting you pregnant before marriage. Caleb, he stopped pacing. "What?" "Come here." He crossed to her, and she took his hands. "Are you happy?" she asked. "I'm terrified." "That's not what I asked." He pulled her into his arms, held her so tight she could barely breathe. "I'm so happy I can't even process it. A baby. Our baby." She felt tears coming again. "You're sure? Because this is happening whether you're ready or not. But I need to know you're in this." "I'm in this. I'm in everything with you, baby. Wedding, all of it." They stood there holding each other, and Mara felt the last piece of fear let go. This was happening. They were doing this, and somehow, despite everything, it was going to be okay. Telling the girls was easier than expected. Sophie was ecstatic, immediately planning how she'd be the best big sister ever. Riley was more cautious, asking questions about logistics and money, and how this would change things. "Nothing changes," Mara told her. You're still my priority. You're still going to college. We're still a team. But there'll be a baby. Yeah, and you'll be in college by the time it's old enough to be annoying, so you're getting off easy. Riley smiled despite herself. I'm going to be an aunt. The coolest aunt ever. Damn right I am. They told Patricia and Robert over dinner. Patricia cried. Robert gave a speech about responsibility and commitment that was probably well-meaning, but mostly awkward. Sophie drew pictures of what she thought the baby would look like. Riley rolled her eyes at everything, but couldn't quite hide her smile. And Mara sat there, surrounded by family, blood and chosen and everything in between, and thought about how far she'd come from that day in the elevator. She'd been so sure Caleb would ruin her life. Turns out he'd saved it instead. Or maybe she'd saved his. Or maybe they'd saved each other. It didn't really matter. What mattered was they were here, together, building something real out of all the messy, complicated pieces of their lives. The wedding planning started immediately after, because Patricia refused to let Mara be obviously pregnant in wedding photos. They set a date for 3 months out, enough time to plan something nice, but not so long that Mara would be too uncomfortable. Small, Mara insisted. Just family and close friends. Patricia looked horrified. Small? Darling, Caleb's the CEO of a major company. People will expect, I don't care what people expect, I want small. In the end, they compromised. A ceremony with immediate family and a handful of friends, followed by a larger reception for business associates and extended family. It wasn't what Mara wanted, but it also wasn't the 300-person extravaganza Patricia had originally suggested. She could live with compromise. The dress shopping was its own adventure. Patricia wanted designer gowns that cost more than cars. Mara wanted something simple that wouldn't make her look like she was trying too hard. They ended up at a boutique that specialized in understated elegance, and Mara found a dress that was perfect. Ivory silk, simple lines, nothing flashy. You look beautiful, Riley said when Mara came out of the dressing room. I look pregnant. You look happy. That's better than beautiful. Sophie nodded seriously. Riley's right. Happy is the best look. Mara bought the dress. Bought shoes she'd only wear once. Let Patricia convince her to get her makeup professionally done. And tried not to think about the fact that in 3 months, she'd be married to a man she'd known for less than a year. A man who'd kissed her in an elevator and changed everything. The night before the wedding, Mara couldn't sleep. She lay in her apartment, the one she'd be leaving tomorrow to move into Caleb's place permanently, and stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that could go wrong. What if they were moving too fast? What if the baby changed everything? What if she woke up one day and realized she'd made a terrible mistake? Her phone buzzed. A text from Caleb. You awake? Yeah, can't sleep. Me neither. Want to break tradition and see each other? Your mother will kill us. She'll survive. 20 minutes later, they were sitting on a bench in the park between their apartments, bundled in jackets against the October chill. You okay? Caleb asked. I'm freaking out. About tomorrow? About everything. The wedding, the baby. The fact that this time last year I didn't even know you existed, and now I'm about to marry you. He took her hand. You can still back out. If you're not ready, I'm ready. That's what scares me. I shouldn't be this ready. She looked at him. We barely know each other, Caleb. What if we're making a huge mistake? Then we'll make it together, and we'll figure it out, the same way we figured out everything else. You make it sound easy. It's not easy, but it's worth it. He pulled her close. I love you. I love who I am when I'm with you. And I can't wait to spend the rest of my life proving that this wasn't a mistake. She kissed him, soft and slow, and felt some of the panic ease. Tomorrow, she said, we're really doing this. Tomorrow, and every day after that. They sat in the park until the cold drove them inside, talking about nothing and everything. And by the time Mara got back to her apartment, she wasn't scared anymore. She was ready. The wedding day arrived with rain that no one had predicted and chaos that everyone should have expected. The florist delivered the wrong flowers. The caterer called in a panic about a broken oven, and Riley's dress zipper broke 30 minutes before the ceremony. This is a disaster, Mara said, standing in her wedding dress while Patricia safety-pinned Riley's zipper and Sophie cried because her flower crown was crooked. This is life, Patricia corrected, not looking up from her pinning. Disasters are things that matter. This is just inconvenient. Somehow, that helped. By the time they made it to the venue, a small garden that had been rented for the afternoon, the rain had stopped and the sun was trying to break through the clouds. 50 people sat in white chairs waiting. Caleb stood at the front with the officiant, looking nervous in a way she'd never seen him. Riley walked down the aisle first, chin up, purple hair bright against the pale green of her dress. Sophie followed, scattering flower petals with more enthusiasm than accuracy. And then it was Mara's turn. She'd always thought she'd be terrified walking down the aisle, thought she'd panic, second guess, maybe even run. But watching Caleb watch her, seeing the way his whole face changed when he saw her, all she felt was sure. "Hi," she said when she reached him. "Hi." His voice was rough. "You look pregnant and terrified?" "Perfect. You look perfect." The ceremony was short. They'd written their own vows, and Caleb went first. "Mara," he said, holding both her hands. "I'm not good at this, at being vulnerable or admitting when I'm wrong or letting people in. But you made me want to try. You showed me that love isn't about control or perfection. It's about showing up, even when it's messy, even when you're scared." He paused, emotion thick in his voice. "I promise to show up for you every day, even when I don't have answers, even when I screw up, especially then." Mara's turn. She'd practiced this a dozen times, had the words memorized, but standing there looking at him, everything she'd planned flew out of her head. "A year ago," she started, "you kissed me without asking, and I should have slapped you, should have filed a complaint, gotten you fired, made your life hell." She smiled through tears. "But instead I fell in love with your stupid grand gestures and your need to fix everything, and the way you love Sophie like she's the center of your universe. You made me believe I could have more than just survival, that I could have joy and partnership and a family that chooses me." Her voice broke. "So I promised to let you show up, to let you in, even when it's scary, to build a life with you that's ours, messy and complicated and absolutely worth it." There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Even Robert was wiping his face. The officiant pronounced them married, kissed her like they were the only two people in the world, and Sophie shouted, "Finally!" loud enough that everyone laughed. The reception was louder, bigger, filled with people Mara didn't know, and a few she did. Her team from work came, which surprised her. Some of them still whispered, still questioned, but they'd shown up anyway. Linda from accounting cornered her by the cake. "Congratulations," Linda said, and she almost sounded sincere. "Thank you. I have to admit, I didn't think you'd last. Thought you were in it for the money, or he was in it for, well, you know." Mara should have been angry, should have told Linda exactly where she could shove her opinions, but she was too happy to waste energy on bitterness. "You were wrong," Mara said simply. "It happens." Linda blinked, then smiled. A real smile. Not the sharp, calculated thing she usually wore. "Yeah, I was. Good for you." She walked away, and Mara felt something release in her chest. She didn't need Linda's approval or anyone else's. She knew what she'd built, what she'd earned. That was enough. The first dance was awkward because Mara had never learned to waltz, and Caleb kept stepping on her feet. But halfway through, they gave up trying to be graceful and just swayed together, laughing. "We're married," Caleb said. "We are. And we're having a baby. In about 6 months, yeah. And Sophie and Riley are going to drive us absolutely crazy." "Probably." He kissed her forehead. "I can't wait." Neither could she. The pregnancy was harder than Mara expected. Morning sickness that lasted all day, exhaustion that made working full-time feel impossible, and a body that didn't feel like hers anymore. But Caleb was there through all of it, holding her hair when she threw up, bringing her crackers at 3 a.m, rubbing her feet while she complained about how much everything hurt. "I'm never doing this again," she told him one night in her second trimester. "Okay. I'm serious. 1 kid is enough. Whatever you want. You're just agreeing because I'm hormonal. I'm agreeing because I love you and you're growing a human, which is objectively harder than anything I've ever done." She couldn't argue with that. Work became complicated. She'd planned to take 3 months of maternity leave, but her boss kept pushing her to come back sooner, just for important meetings, he said, just to check in on projects, as if having a newborn wasn't a full-time job. "Tell him no," Caleb said. "I can't just tell my boss no." "Why not? You're the best director they have. They need you more than you need them." "That's not how it works." "It should be." He was right, but saying no felt impossible. She'd spent her whole life proving she was indispensable, that she could handle anything. Admitting she needed time felt like failure. It took Riley, of all people, to change her mind. "You're being stupid," Riley said bluntly over dinner one night. "Excuse me? You heard me. You spent years telling me to set boundaries, to not let people take advantage of me. And now you're letting your boss guilt you into working through maternity leave. That's stupid." Mara stared at her sister. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from the best," Riley shrugged. "Just take your own advice for once." So Mara went to her boss the next day and told him she'd be taking the full 3 months, non-negotiable. He didn't like it, but he accepted it. And Mara felt something lighten in her chest. She could set boundaries, could prioritize herself and her family without it meaning she'd failed. The baby came 2 weeks early, in the middle of the night, with contractions that made Mara curse Caleb's entire bloodline. Sophie stayed with Patricia and Robert. Riley drove herself to the hospital, refusing to miss it. Labor was long and brutal, and nothing like the peaceful moments people described in movies. Mara screamed at Caleb, threatened to divorce him, and generally made everyone in the delivery room uncomfortable. But when the doctor placed their daughter in her arms, tiny and red-faced and absolutely perfect, everything else disappeared. "Hi," Mara whispered. "Hi, baby." Caleb was crying, actually crying, tears running down his face as he stared at their daughter like she was a miracle. "She's so small," he said. "She's perfect." They named her Emma, after Mara's mother. Emma Rose Whitmore, 7 pounds 3 ounces, with dark hair and Caleb's nose and lungs that could wake the dead. Riley met her niece an hour later holding Emma like she was made of glass. "She's so tiny," Riley breathed. "You were this tiny once." "That's terrifying." Riley looked up, eyes bright. "Can I babysit?" "When you're not in college, sure. I'll come home on weekends. I want to be the cool aunt." "You're already the cool aunt." Sophie visited next, bursting into the hospital room with enough energy for 3 kids. She climbed onto the bed carefully, stared at Emma for a full minute, then announced, "She looks like a potato." "Sophie," Caleb said. "What?" "She does. A cute potato, but still a potato." Mara laughed so hard she nearly woke Emma up. The first weeks at home were a blur of sleepless nights, endless diapers, and learning how to function on 2 hours of sleep. Emma cried constantly, and nothing they did seemed to help. Mara felt like she was drowning, like she'd made a terrible mistake thinking she could handle this. "I don't know what I'm doing," she told Caleb at 3 in the morning, both of them awake, while Emma screamed. "Neither do I." "You did this before." "With Sophie." Sophie was different. Every baby is different. He took Emma from her, started the bouncing, swaying motion that sometimes helped. "We'll figure it out." "What if we don't?" "Then we'll figure that out too." Somehow they did. Emma's crying lessened as she got older, settling into patterns they could predict. Mara learned to function on no sleep, to shower while Emma napped, to accept help when Patricia or Riley offered. And slowly, the fog lifted. She started to feel like herself again, tired, stretched thin, but herself. Going back to work after 3 months was harder than she'd expected. She'd been looking forward to adult conversations and projects that didn't involve bodily fluids, but leaving Emma with the nanny they'd hired felt like tearing off a limb. "I can't do this," she said the first morning, standing at the door with her pump bag and laptop. "Yes, you can," Caleb said. He was taking the day off to help Emma adjust to the nanny. "Emma will be fine. You'll be fine." "What if she needs me?" "Then I'll call you, and you'll come home." "But she won't. She's going to sleep and eat and probably poop, and you're going to remember why you love your job." He was right. By noon, Mara was deep into budget reviews and strategy meetings, feeling more like herself than she had in months. She missed Emma desperately, checked her phone every 10 minutes for updates from Caleb, but she also remembered that she was more than just a mother. She was a project director, a problem solver, someone who was good at what she did. She could be both. It wouldn't be easy, but she could do it. The balance was brutal. Work demanded more than 40 hours a week, and Emma demanded everything else. Mara felt constantly torn, constantly guilty. Guilty for working when she should be home, guilty for thinking about Emma during meetings. "You're being too hard on yourself," Riley said during one of her weekend visits home from college. "I'm failing at everything." "You're not failing. You're just doing too much. Riley bounced Emma on her lap. Maybe you need to cut back. Work less. Be home more. I can't just cut back. I have responsibilities. So delegate. Isn't that what bosses do? Mara stared at her sister. When had Riley gotten so smart? She started delegating the next week, handed off projects to her team that she would have insisted on doing herself 6 months ago, trusted other people to do good work instead of trying to control everything. And slowly, the pressure eased. She still worked too much, still felt guilty. But she also made it to Emma's first smile, her first laugh, the first time she rolled over. She was there for Sophie's school play, for Riley's college acceptance letters, for the million small moments that made up a life. And she started to realize that success didn't mean doing everything perfectly. It meant showing up, trying your best, and forgiving yourself when you fell short. Emma's first birthday came faster than Mara expected. They threw a party at Caleb's apartment, their apartment now, though Mara still thought of it as his sometimes. Family and friends crammed into the living room, and Emma sat in her high chair covered in cake, delighted by all the attention. She's amazing, Patricia said, watching her granddaughter smash frosting into her hair. She's a mess, Mara corrected. Same thing. Sophie was teaching Emma to clap, both of them laughing when Emma got it right. Riley was documenting everything on her phone, probably for some social media post Mara would never understand. Caleb was talking to his father about business, but his eyes kept drifting to Emma. This was family. Messy, loud, imperfect, absolutely chaotic family. 2 years later, Riley graduated from college with honors and acceptance to 3 medical schools. She chose the one closest to home, wanting to be near Emma and the family she'd built. You could go anywhere, Mara told her. Don't stay because of us. I'm not staying because of you. I'm staying because I want to. Riley smiled. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't raise Emma to be as uptight as you are. I'm not uptight. You color code Emma's toys by developmental stage. You're definitely uptight. Mara threw a pillow at her. Sophie was 12 now, taller than Mara, and starting to show signs of the teenager she'd become. She adored Emma, spent hours reading to her little sister and teaching her things no 2-year-old needed to know. When I grow up, Sophie told Mara one day, I want a family like this. Like what? Big, loud, where everyone shows up even when it's hard. Mara's chest tightened. Yeah, me too. She'd gotten that. Against all odds, despite every reason it shouldn't have worked, she'd built exactly the family she'd always wanted. Work continued to evolve. Mara made senior director, then vice president. She hired her own team, mentored young women who reminded her of herself, and made sure no one ever had to face the kind of gossip and doubt she'd endured. People still whispered sometimes, still questioned whether she'd earned her position or just married into it. But Mara had stopped caring. She knew her worth, knew what she'd accomplished. And if other people wanted to diminish that, that was their problem. The company Christmas party that year was different. Instead of anxiety and whispers, Mara walked in feeling confident. She'd organized half the event, negotiated with vendors, and made sure everything ran smoothly. People respected her now, not because of Caleb, but because she'd proven herself over and over. Linda approached her by the bar. Mara Whitmore, Linda said. Look at you, VP. Not bad for a girl from Greenfield. Not bad for anyone, Mara corrected gently. Linda nodded. You were right, you know. What you said at your wedding. I was wrong about you. Water under the bridge. Is it? Because I was cruel. I made your life harder because I was jealous. Linda took a breath. I'm sorry for all of it. Mara hadn't expected that. Hadn't thought Linda was capable of genuine apology. Thank you, she said. That means a lot. They didn't become friends, but they became something better, colleagues who respected each other, and that was enough. 5 years after that elevator kiss, Caleb and Mara sat on their balcony watching the sunset. Emma was asleep inside, Sophie was at a sleepover, and Riley was out with friends from medical school. The apartment was quiet in a way it rarely was. Remember when we met? Mara asked. When I kissed you without permission and nearly ruined both our lives? That's the one. Caleb pulled her closer. Best mistake I ever made. It wasn't a mistake, it was just impulsive, reckless, stupid. All of the above. Kissed her temple. But it gave me you. Gave me Emma. Gave me a family I didn't know I needed. Mara thought about that, about how one moment had changed everything, how she could have walked away, could have transferred to Boston, could have chosen safety over risk. But she hadn't. She'd chosen to stay, to fight, to build something real with a man who'd seen her at her worst and loved her anyway. I wouldn't change it, she said. Any of it. The gossip, the struggle, the sleepless nights. It made us who we are. Who are we? A family. A real one. The kind that shows up even when it's hard. Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then, I love you. I don't say it enough, but I do. You made me better. You made me braver. Made me believe I could have everything I wanted instead of just settling for good enough. They sat there as the sun disappeared and the city lights came on, and Mara thought about all the things she'd learned. That love wasn't about perfection, it was about showing up when things got hard. That family wasn't just blood, it was choosing to be there for each other. That success meant different things to different people, and her version didn't have to look like anyone else's. She'd spent so long trying to prove she was enough, trying to show the world she deserved her position, deserved happiness, deserved love. But the truth was simpler than that. She'd always been enough. She just hadn't known it yet. Emma woke up crying around midnight. Mara went to her, picked her up, rocked her back to sleep, and standing there in the nursery with her daughter in her arms, she felt something settle deep in her bones. This was it. This was the life she'd built from one reckless kiss and 1,000 small choices after. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was hers. And that made it absolutely perfect anyway. The next morning, Caleb made pancakes while Emma banged on her high-chair tray, and Mara checked work emails she shouldn't be checking on a Sunday. Sophie wandered in, still half asleep, and Riley called to say she was bringing her boyfriend over for lunch. "Your sister has a boyfriend?" Caleb asked. "Apparently. She says he's pre-law and very serious." "Should I be worried?" "Probably, but that's what happens when you have teenage girls around." Sophie snorted. "I'm not getting a boyfriend until I'm 30. "Good plan," Mara said. Emma threw her sippy cup on the floor. Sophie picked it up. Caleb burned the first batch of pancakes, and through all of it, the chaos and noise and mess, Mara felt happiness so complete it almost hurt. This was what she'd been missing her whole life, the sense of belonging, of being part of something bigger than herself. And she'd found it in the last place she'd expected, with a man who'd kissed her in an elevator and somehow convinced her to take a chance on love. They ate breakfast together, all of them crowded around the table. Emma made a mess. Sophie complained about her math homework. Caleb told bad jokes that only he found funny. And Mara sat there taking it all in, memorizing this moment because she knew how quickly they passed. "What are you thinking about?" Caleb asked. "How lucky I am." "You worked for this. Luck had nothing to do with it." Maybe he was right. Maybe it was all the late nights and hard conversations and refusing to quit when things got difficult. Maybe it was choosing to stay when running would have been easier. Or maybe it was both, luck and work, chance and choice, a reckless moment that became something real because they decided it was worth fighting for. Either way, Mara wouldn't change a single thing. Years later, when Emma was old enough to ask questions, she'd want to know how her parents met, and Mara would tell her the truth, that sometimes the best things in life come from the biggest mistakes. That love isn't about perfection, it's about showing up. That family is what you make it, not what you're given. She'd tell her about an elevator and a kiss and a choice to stay instead of run. And she'd tell her that none of it was easy, but all of it was worth it. Because in the end, that's what love was. Choosing someone over and over even when it was hard. Especially when it was hard. And Mara had chosen Caleb, chosen their family, chosen this messy, complicated, absolutely beautiful life. One elevator ride had given her everything, and she'd never been more grateful for a moment of reckless impulse in her entire life.